All right. Hello, everyone. We have a special guest on today, and it's Sam Weiner. And he is an IT service provider for wineries. And Sam and I met a few months ago, and he has a really awesome story about how he became a IT service provider or an MSP for vineyards and wineries in his area. So I kind of want to shut up, let him introduce himself here and talk about like how did you get into this, Sam? Like your story, like when you first told me, like I'm not an MSP. I just kind of started doing MSP work, and in my mind, you are one of the most mature MSPs that I have in my system. So go ahead and tell your story.
Excellent. Thank you, Adam. No, it's super exciting. And I backed into it. And which is, I think, an interest. My mom was like that, by the way. She would approach things sideways and backwards, and you get to some good results that way sometimes. So I started out, when I was 13, my dad got me tutored in assembly on my Commodore VIC-20, and I was, bouncing balloons around, this kind of thing. Ended up working a summer job. He was a software entrepreneur, so I ended up working a summer job at one of his companies. Taught myself Fortran and figured out how to, detect 45-degree traces in a circuit board design program. So I am a major software geek.
Man,
My whole
we need to
career.
have Skip interviewing you instead of me if you're talking Vic 20 and
Yeah. Oh, him and I have talked about this. I think we geeked out about the Commodore greatness. Um, yeah. No. And then I ended up doing it for a career. I ended up I've been a software for 30 years plus. Late 90s, early 2000s, I was consulting to Xerox in their core integration group called Message Broker. So that sort of set the tone for my career. I started seeing that tying data together between different systems was a really interesting problem. I've come to realize it's a basic problem for humanity. That
the
the
problem.
last, yeah, yeah. Now I've got a slide I could show, and we just talked about it on podcast. It's not going to come through, but I've got a slide on the last 100 years of change and disruption in technology and how it's inevitably resulted in the splintering of data, organizational data, in a way that's a fundamental challenge to every business. But as I got into it, so this starts the transition. I raised some money to develop what's called a data fabric to tie systems together, and started the company in 2012. That's Quantum Loop Solutions is the parent
Were
company.
you tying systems together like specifically targeting an industry, or were you just creating the fabric for calls between disparate systems?
It was focused from the beginning on commerce. I was a
Okay.
partner in a retail operation at that point, selling sailing gear, and I realized there was a problem for merchants selling in multiple channels and trying to keep that data together.
Okay.
So my partner at the time in that put in some money. We started Quantum Loop Solutions, and came in third place in the Rochester Regional Business Plan contest there in 2012, and actually built an iPad app called New Sale. So we had omnicommerce at the beginning of 2012. With New Sale, you could sell online using Magento. You'd sell mobile and in a store using our app, and all the data was tied together, and it worked fine. But I was a little startup in Rochester, New York, and that's big business. I figured out pretty quickly we couldn't go to market. We had just no way to go to market with a general omni-commerce solution. And it was just way too feature poor. We didn't have the resources to bring it to market. So 2013, I got into a workshop called the Lean Launchpad, which was based on the business model canvas, the Lean startup methodology. And it focused me in. I've lived in this area my whole life, but never really appreciated the Finger Lakes, which is right in my backyard, which, a common thing. People don't appreciate what's around them. But I ended up talking with a bunch of wineries, trying to do this product market match, and realized what a fantastic industry this is. It's just incredibly complex, right? Wineries are in agriculture. They're growing grapes a lot of times in the vineyard. They're in manufacturing a controlled substance. But then they're in distribution, they're in retail, they've got full service restaurants, they've got lodging, they've got everything under one roof,
Yep.
which, by definition means they've got to have 50 different systems that handle each part of their business. Well, once they start to scale, if you're a really small winery, then you can get away with having, one system or fewer systems. But that's what sort of over time I realized. So I got into the winery vertical in 2013 and started to bring our data fabric and connect some systems that wineries in the Finger Lakes were using, but sort of realized pretty quickly that that was only half of the problem, that getting the systems connected is, critical. But if you've got bad data going into the systems, it's garbage in, garbage out. So what we started doing just naturally, organically, was supporting staff in using the systems. And so pretty quickly we became a reseller for Rebel Systems. That's the point of sale system. And in 2014, and started supporting that. Eventually started getting into, supporting a few other things. And I think it was, I'm kind of slow sometimes. I think it was 2018 before somebody said, dude, you're an MSP. And I was like, oh, that's what we've been doing.
That's what we are. Oh,
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo mask. It's been
Yeah,
you all along.
exactly. So, yeah. And even then it took me a little while to realize, you know what, that I knew, I kept on saying, there's gotta be books out there to understand. I mean, MSPs, it's IT support, it's this kind of thing.
Yep.
Ended up finally realizing there were people like you out there that exist to support MSPs, and there's methodologies and tooling and so it felt like, huge puzzle piece clicking in, particularly when I met you guys and the Humanize IT platform was like, oh, it's demystify it. You want to have a conversation at the business level, and it's not about the technology up front. And that fit perfectly because in my career, I've done a ton of that, right? I've
Yep.
worked at the high level, but it's for people that were trying to develop software. And so understanding their business problem, trying to architect and design software systems that would solve business problems. I've done a lot of that. And so realizing, you know what, it's that, but it's not developing software. It's using off the shelf technology and just figuring out what's the right technology to align with their business, issues that they really want, and having a methodology and tooling to help guide me through that conversation. It's just, it's fantastic.
And I want everyone to see here his approach, right? You guys, most of you came from I service technology. I service routers, switches, PCs, laptops, and you came from that area. And you assume that that's what an MSP is. And traditionally, yes, by definition, the people who defined MSP back in like 2010 or so, that's what they called an MSP. But an IT service provider, if we roll back before all of the marketing took over and told you what you needed to be, we were people who solved business problems with technology. So in the late 90s, it was we helped people get their inventory online. Even before that, we were using AS400s or mainframe systems to connect data between departments so they could make calls and do quicker things. Sam is doing the same thing. He's taking a problem that a business has and he has provided a solution. He's not dealing with PC servers or anything like that. And this is 2018, right? He's doing this stuff and it's solving a major problem for these businesses using technology that he knows. It's no different than those of you who walk in with servers and laptops, other than the fact that he's solving a business problem, a specific need that the company has to help them generate more revenue. And that's going to lead them into greater things. So now that you've got this website or you've got this tool that wineries are using, how does that get you into more systems with the wineries?
Mm. Well, it's real interesting. And it's an interesting line, right, between business and technology that I can't say I've mastered at all. I think that's like saying, Pete, or something.
Yep.
But it's not being scared of having those conversations, I think was part of the key. But at the same time, being humble and saying, I'm not a business person. I'm not going to make the business decisions. I got to stay in my lane, and say I'm a technologist. And what I need to do is have these highest level conversations simply to be able to understand enough about their business and their motivations, their specific goals, in the short term, long term, at the business level, so that I can make the right technology recommendations.
Hmm.
And so the what I started out with, on your recommendation, actually was a SWOT analysis. It's this old as the hills thing, but I said, let's put away the screens. I just had a piece of paper. I used a little tablet, and said, let's talk about your strengths. Let's talk about your weaknesses. Let's talk about opportunities. And we, touched on threats just a little bit, which, is maybe the weather, this kind of thing. But that, not having screens up, just having a conversation face to face and understanding a lot of what that brought out was the history. How did, RG New York, the winery, how did this particular winery come to be? What's its history? And that led, really nicely into, where do they want to be, where they need to be in 2025, and at least understanding the challenge they're facing, which is not a technology challenge, it's a revenue challenge.
Yep.
In 2025, we want to do this in revenue, right? So those are the classic things, which again, listening to you guys, reading a bunch of stuff now that I understand, there's guidance out there for people that want to be a world-class MSP. It's the business problems don't tend to change. It's, you want to increase revenue, you want to reduce expenses, you're looking for customer satisfaction, you're trying to improve employee morale. It's relatively, common, but people don't make progress on them over time because they
Yep.
don't have a structured way to continue to have those conversations with the technology people who, because you can spend a ton on technology and get yourself into all sorts of rabbit holes really quickly that don't end up driving to the main business goals you want. So understanding that in 2025, their main goal was increase in revenue, we were able to focus in on, okay, let's talk about wine clubs in particular and see where you're at with your wine club and what we can do. Because I know a bunch about how wine clubs are disruptive, and what's needed on the technology, and in particular in an omni-commerce setting. Say you've got people subscribing online to a wine club, but then you've got people coming into the tasting room and they want to sign up for the wine club in an easy way. They want to be able to, enjoy benefits that they get for being a wine club member in the point of sale system, and this kind of thing. So that just led to a great conversation, and we lined up a few projects for the first quarter of 2025, but then also talked at a high level through maybe 20 projects that, we could see happening in 2025. So the next time we do a quarterly business review, end of first quarter 25, we've got those to look at and say, all right, how do we keep on moving towards this business goal?
Yeah. And note the passion Sam has here, right? He's excited to do this work. This isn't just going in and just working more code or working more systems. He's excited to actually work with these people. And before this call, I'm going to roll it back a little bit and say, we were even talking about when you were doing those SWOT analysis, when you're having these conversations earlier this week, you started discovering and kind of like led you into, there's a bigger opportunity here. There are more people wanting to do this experience on lots more vineyards. So you had come up with a solution for this one vineyard that may apply to what, another 13 vineyards in this system. So you just expanded with almost no effort. And it's a win-win. You're going to get more contracts. They're going to get a better experience for their customers, and everybody's going to win here. And you would not have found that if you just went in and said, okay, here's how many tickets I closed. Here is how many threats we blocked this last quarter. You would have gone through and shown your value without learning about your client's value. And so I really want to showcase there, like, how did that conversation happen? How did you go from I'm solving this problem for this one vineyard or one winery and get into I'm solving a problem and see an opportunity for the owner of the wineries and a bunch of wineries and how we can solve their problems too?
Yeah, no, that was particularly satisfying and interesting. And so we did the SWOT analysis, and that led into, we talked about their business model canvas, and we'd already come up with a version of it, but had a bit more discussion around that. And then and this was my sister's suggestion, so I'll give her credit. But she said, when you get to that level, it's not just being human and listening. You want to be thinking about motivations. What really motivates people? So we just had a really nice open discussion there about, what motivates the person I was talking to who runs the local winery, what motivates the people he's working for. And we ended up starting to talk about the parent company and realized, some of what motivates them were things that, it made sense for us to talk about, because there was a parallel there. And so, and it was actually real interesting, because again, we're walking this line. I'm not trying to, step into the business side and tell this guy who's running a local winery how to deal with his parent company. But that conversation just uncovered ways that he could potentially help them, and with their structure and understanding their data. And so that was how that sort of opened up. And I told him, we get through the first couple of quarters next year, we may have to go for a trip together, visit the parent company, and do an assessment there. So
Yeah.
um,
See,
hopefully that answers it.
yeah, no, definitely. So MSPs, we're going to talk about more about this in the second half of this podcast. Where like, how do these VCIO level services happen? Like Sam put a lot of effort into talking to his clients about what mattered to them, but it was a natural flow. He didn't have to force it. There was no magic bullet here. There's a bunch of little things he did to build a relationship. And this is the person keeping a lot of you MSPs at bay. Like, this is your competition. You cannot hold a candle to what Sam's doing. If you walked in and said, "Oh, we can support your PCs better than Winery Connect," I guarantee you're going to lose the bid, because you're not talking the same language. You're not being empathetic with the customer. And you each out there have different areas where you could lean into manufacturing, lean into doctors' offices, lean into a vertical like schools, like I did when I started. And you could find out that, wow, I can really expand. There's lots of market out here for this particular thing. And I've got a great value for this industry. And then you can become that person that is providing that value to that school, to that doctor's office, for that system, where you got that unique value prop that's also going to help you solve problems for all the other people in that vertical. Just like Sam is for his. He's got a great piece of software that solves a very nice problem. None of you have one of those. Sorry. Sam's going to beat you every time when it comes to a winery. However, look for those same opportunities in your areas. What area could you lean into? Where do you have a unique value? Maybe you have an employee who's got 30 years experience in manufacturing and doing C-level programming. Lean into that. Maybe you've got somebody who's an HMS expert for Epic or one of the health management systems. Lean into it, because there's a whole vertical out there that could use your help. And so with wineries, like Sam was even explaining to me, like this idea of having an experience where you come in and, this is a complicated system. Like, how do they get the right music to play? How do they set a mood for clients? How do they, um, you know, see which vines are having issues or are in season? These are all technology problems and solutions. And he knows about them and could run entire workshops teaching this stuff because he pays attention to this one vertical. Does he know how to do C-level programming in a manufacturing plant? Given he learned assembly on a VIC 20, I'm guessing he's at least once played with C. But is it what you want to do, Sam? Do you want to go to a manufacturing plant and run C-level programming and help them with their microcontrollers? I'm guessing no.
No, I'm in Python these days, and I am
Oh,
working with a
okay.
manufacturer on that. So yeah, I do enjoy that in optics manufacturing in particular. That's one of my side gigs. But the yeah, no, in fact, rolling back a second there, you gave me a little better way, I think, to talk about this, transition from talking with this local winery to the bigger opportunity. and how it happened was really around value. To your point, everything is about value. And this is just to characterize. This is a wealthy family that makes their money doing something else, and they wanted to create value. They wanted to have something that was creating some beauty, creating some experiences for people, and connecting with that. It was only possible because I've been working with wineries for a decade, and I really care about that exactly that. Helping them create experiences. That's what it's all about. If you're a winery, everything from we say seed to sale to social, from the vines to the how you're blending the wine and doing this, it all leads up to this experience with the consumer. And most importantly, really for a lot of wineries, it's in the tasting room where, as you mentioned, you've got music, you've got all sorts of things that in the end have to talk to the network, have to be, the firewall has to be configured properly so that these things can talk to external services without breaking your PCI compliance. There's a whole bunch of technical stuff behind that. But the key thing is there's two key things. First of all, is having that mentality. Say, I want to create true value. I really want to help people in this particular industry. And the only way you're going to be able to help anybody in any industry is if you want to know the industry and know the people. And then the other part, which you've really helped me with, is not being afraid, to say, yeah, you know what? I'm not a business analyst. I'm not a management consultant, but I can do a SWOT analysis with you, which is, as long as I understand and communicate with you, this isn't anything abstract. This is just a way to have a conversation and say, let's talk about your strengths. Let's talk about your weaknesses and see where that goes.
Yeah. And that's what you need to key in on, people. We're going to talk about this in the second half of this podcast, is that you don't have to be a business expert. And I think that's where I get a lot of animosity with VCIOs out there. Like, well, you need to know all this stuff. Like, no, you need to be a better facilitator of knowledge. So just like how Sam took all these disparate systems out there and connect them together with a piece of software, you need to be that connection point for them and their systems and engineers so that all of that can work together. You're not the business expert. You're not the engineer. You're just connecting them and what's going on. You leveraging their business expertise. They have a PhD in their own company. You'll never match their knowledge in their business vertical. Never. What you can do is listen to them and then listen to your engineers when your engineers say, oh, we can solve that problem. Listen to your developers when they say, oh, yeah, that's a simple thing. Or, you know what? That's not a really good idea because of X, Y, and Z. Your job is to be a facilitator of information. And we're going to talk more about that in this next episode. And Sam's going to explain more about how he took this software package that he originally had, moved into an MSP, but then also saw something bigger and the whys and hows of that and how you can do that in your MSP too. So thanks, Sam, for coming on. And I hope everybody will tune in for this next episode.
Absolutely. Thank you, Adam. This is great.